Most of your goals and dreams do not require your action. Time will either promote you or time will expose you. It's just a matter of time. The more authentic and vulnerable we can be and share with people the good, the bad, the ugly, the more people respect and admire you, and the more people want to be around you because you're authentic, you're vulnerable, and you're transparent with people.
Hello and welcome to the Business Growth Show, where we talk about all components of business and how to utilize them for exponential growth. My name is Cappadocia. I'm a business growth expert who help business owners grow and scale to create wealth and freedom. Today, I have an awesome guest. His name is Sir Darren Jacklin, and he's a world-class speaker, corporate trainer, international author, and PhilanthroInvestor. In over 25 years, he has personally trained executives and teams for 157 Fortune 500 companies, showcasing his unparalleled expertise in corporate training and personal development. As a world-class speaker and corporate trainer, he has shared his knowledge with over 1 million people worldwide, directly impacting countless lives through his engaging and transformative educational sessions. He's actively engaged in raising $100 million for Global Philanthropy Projects, channeled through his international LYNK Foundation and Elevate to Educate initiatives. And his contributions to global philanthropy and entrepreneurship were formally recognized in 2022 when he was knighted by His Royal Highness of the Royal Order of Cappadocia from Spain, a prestigious acknowledgment of his efforts to make a tangible difference worldwide. And his journey reflects a relentless pursuit of excellence, both personally and professionally, and a deep-rooted commitment to making a difference in the lives of others. Welcome, Sir Darren Jacklin, and thank you for being on the Business Growth Show.
Hey, Ethan, I'm grateful to be here and be in service.
Awesome, mate. I'm sure it's going to be awesome for everyone watching and listening today. And you are a successful entrepreneur. So for those people who don't know who you are, just, introduce yourself by telling us a little bit more about your very interesting and amazing journey.
Yeah. So I have a very interesting backstory, come up story, and success story. And my backstory is with a lot of adversities, failures, challenges, setbacks, a lot of obstacles in my life. And through that journey of my backstory, I overcome a lot of things, but I also understand during the day-to-day operations of my life, in terms of what I do during the waking hours of my day, I now know what not to do because I've made so many mistakes in that over the years. And now I know how to, design and control my calendar in terms of my daily habits and daily routines that produce extraordinary results in my life today. And so, I'm somebody who, statistically, when people look at my backstory, the things I overcome and to where I am today, statistically, I'm a great case study because I shouldn't be here where I'm at today. I've been to NASDAQ 3 times during the closing bell. I've helped serve on the board of directors of a publicly traded company, a real estate company that helped take it as a team member from startup to 90,000 licensed agents in 24 countries on 5 continents. Our first day of trading did over $1 billion market cap on NASDAQ. And today it's a multi-billion dollar company that's serving people all over the world. And so I had for a whole decade, I had a seat at the table as the first independent board of directors member. And I also today, have a portfolio of companies. I'm in the bookkeeping, accounting, tax planning business with our Smashing Numbers company. I'm involved in the food business. I'm involved in a lot of real estate. I have a lot of holdings in real estate, philanthropy. We have a Global Family Foundation where we've committed to building 100 schools around the world and contributing $100 million to global philanthropy. So my hands in different things, but I'm grateful today I have a team of people that are around me. And I'm grateful for Tatiana, the love of my life, and my partner in my life, to help me. And so I'm a very practical, very results-oriented person. But the thing is in my life is I'm somebody who grateful today in my life. And I know from, a life of growing up that, where I used to lie a lot and exaggerate things and embellish things. And throughout my later years in life, when I got confronted by realizing the lack of integrity that I had back then, and no workability, and some defining moments in my life that changed my life today, where I'm very blessed with gratitude to where it is today. So we can unpack things. I'm fully transparent, authentic, vulnerable here. Raw and real. I just put all my cards on the table and can share with you the good, the bad, the ugly of entrepreneurship and business ownership, to serve people, but also give people hope and possibility that, there's certain structures and systems and processes that when you implement them into your life, they produce massive, specific, measurable, actionable results. And so, so I'm curious to dive in here and serve people all over the world and make a contribution to people's lives.
Yeah, awesome, Darren. Amazing story there and what you've achieved. And knowing a bit more about your story, I think, yeah, we definitely need to talk about the challenges, right?
Sure,
Because I know that you had
absolutely.
a lot of adversity growing up, just to show, to really highlight this to people, about what it was. So I'd love for you to, yeah, really go from that start about
Sure.
how challenging it was for you, in those early years.
Yeah, sure, absolutely. So I'll take you right back to elementary school. I'm 5 years old. I failed grade one of public school in Swift Current, Saskatchewan, Canada. I'm a Canadian. And so I failed grade one of public school. I'm then misdiagnosed with a learning disability and a reading disability in public education. And it's determined by the public school system that I'm unfit to attend regular public school. So I'm then put into what we call special ed or special education classes. So from grade one all the way through to grade 12, I'm now in special education. I'm in the small classroom with a learner, like an executive assistant, but I have a learning assistant teacher that's sitting right beside me and helping me out with my special education in class. So I'm 7 years of age, Nathan, and I create my first business venture called Rent a Kid. Rent a Kid. I go out and I cut grass. I'm shoveling snow in the wintertime and I'm delivering newspapers 6 days a week in my neighborhood. And I grew up in a town or a city of less than 20,000 people in population, a Canadian city in Saskatchewan, Canada. And so by the time I'm 9 years old, I have my two best friends that are working with me. I'm out knocking on all these doors, serving people, solving problems, making a difference in my community. And my two best friends back then are still great friends today, 45 years later. And it's fascinating. So I then go through junior high school. I'm struggling, low self-esteem, very insecure, feeling not good enough, not smart enough, not going to amount to much in my life, very insecure. And then I get into high school and I'm in grade 11, public school, and guidance counselor, school teacher come get me out of class one day out of special ed. And they say, listen, we need to talk to you at the guidance counselor's office. So take me to the guidance counselor's office, sit down. They said, what do you want to do? And I said, I want to travel the world. I want to make a lot of money. I want to have a lot of fun. I want to make a big difference in the world. And I want to live life on my own terms. That was a big thing for me, living life on my own terms, because I was always being told what to do. And I'm a terrible employee, just full transparency. I make a terrible employee because I don't like being told what to do. I like to wake up. People always say to me, what time do you go to bed at night? I say, I go to bed when I'm tired. And they go, what time do you wake up? And I said, when I'm done sleeping. They go, well, how do you do that? I say, consistently. I said, I'm not trying to be arrogant. I just want to live life on my own terms, right, by design. And so I'm in this guidance counselor's office and I'm telling them I want to do all these things, which is what we call entrepreneurship, solving problems, serving people. And they said, based on your academic marks, you probably won't graduate from grade 12. You'll never go to college, never go to university. And kids like you are what we call a throwaway kid. They could say it back then. Today, you couldn't. There's too much risk in saying those words. But back then, they'd say you're a throwaway kid and you're not going to amount to much. And we hope that you can get a job being a farmer or working in the oil and gas industry or working construction, but you're never going to amount to much. And that really impacted my self-confidence even more. So I did graduate from grade 12, one of the lowest performing kids in high school. And then I left and then I did multiple suicides to end my life because of my mental health. And my mental health was very low, I was very afraid, very insecure, very scared living in the world, had a lot of fear, a lot of doubt, a lot of worry, a lot of insecurity. And I had no hope and possibility. I was terrified of life. And so I was driving my car at 140 kilometers an hour or 85 miles an hour towards telephone poles. And I used to premeditate and practice this multiple times, racing my car towards the telephone pole. And my final attempt, I got so scared, Ethan, I stopped the car and I said, I can't do this. I just can't. So I turned my car around and I drove in to the city and I went to a 24-hour crisis line, telephone crisis line center. They had an office there and I rang the door buzzer and a lady came to the door and says, can I help you? And I said, I'm trying to commit suicide and I'm turning myself in. Come on inside. So they started offering me counseling. This is back in the 1990s. So then from there, one of the counselors said, we want to introduce you to Dale Carnegie. So I didn't know who Dale Carnegie was, but I was looking for a mentor. I wanted to have a role model and a positive people in my life. I was open. When the students ready, the teachers appear. And here I'm ready. So I'm waiting for the teachers to appear in my life. So I'm walking around this hotel that they sent me to, and I'm looking for Dale Carnegie. And one of the hotel staff members comes to me and says, can I help you, sir? I said, yeah, I'm looking for an older gentleman by the name of Dale Carnegie. Would you happen to know who this gentleman is? And they go, he's upstairs in the conference center. I'm thinking, well, why would he happen in the conference center? So I wander over into the conference center of this hotel convention center, and it says Dale Carnegie Training. I'm thinking, okay, Dale Carnegie Training, what is this about? This is weird, right? So I walk in there and there's a bunch of chairs set up, theater style. And I said to one of the ladies there, I said, can I ask you a question? I said, do you know who Dale Carnegie is? Yeah, come on in. I said, I'm supposed to meet Dale Carnegie. She laughed. She goes, Dale Carnegie's been passed away for many years, but he has a legacy called the Dale Carnegie Training Program. So I ended up going to an orientation overview that night and signed up and joined Dale Carnegie Training about leadership and communication. From there, I met a lady who then introduced me to Toastmasters International. And I went to Toastmasters totally terrified, totally scared, way out of my comfort zone, Ethan. And I went there, and Dale Carnegie and Toastmasters shaped the foundation of my new life. And I had people in Dale Carnegie training and in Toastmasters that believed more in me than I actually believed in myself. And I had a woman who stood for me. Her name is Sue Urquhart. She stood for me. And she says, I believe that we could take Darren and mentor and coach and train him to become a world-class speaker and trainer. And so for 25 years, I traveled the world, right? All over the world, 50 countries, 4 continents, trained, developed over 1 million people with no formal academic education. Some of the biggest companies on planet Earth. Worked with a lot of celebrities, billionaires, some of the biggest families in the world, had a chance to have a seat at the table and train, develop a lot of these people. And so built my self-confidence and my belief in myself that, wow, look what I could do. And so in 2011, I'm flying one day, and I've written over 7,000 goals for my life that I've got documented, written down over 7,000 goals as part of my master plan for my life. And one of my goals back in 2011 was, number one, is I thought, what would be cool if I could ever get knighted, like a Sir Darren Jacklin? It was just a fantasy, just a wishful thinking kind of a dream. You know, I was speculating, total speculation. So I wrote that down. Another thing I wrote down is, what if I get onto paid advisory boards and paid boards of directors of public and private companies around the world? This is in 2011. Well, in 2013, I got a phone call from a wealthy family here in Canada, and they said, hey, we're in the discovery process of this residential real estate company that's a startup company. You know, they're building the airplanes, they're flying it, they've got no financial backing, they don't have any deep pockets. It's a realtor who we invested in back in before. Would you be part of our due diligence team and fly back at your own financial expense and be part of our family in terms of the discovery and the due diligence process? So I thought, absolutely. If I can get a seat at the table and be part of this ultra high net worth family's inner circle and be in the conversation, because what I always share with people, Ethan, is, you know, as human beings, all we are is a network of conversations. All we are is a network of conversations, and opportunities live inside of conversations. And I've learned to, you know, network with people and talk to lots of people, because strangers are everything we want, everything we need, everything we desire in our lives. So I talk to lots of strangers all the time, because all we are is a network of conversations. So I spent 7 months volunteering my time with this family. Then in the 7 months, the family said, hey, what do you think of this company? I said, you know what? I think you should write a check. You should invest in this company, pending, you know, discovering due diligence and what other people on your team say, your accountants, your lawyers, you know, get their financial opinion as well, and get a legal opinion on this company. And then if you feel comfortable, move forward. So they said, great, we're going to invest, but we want you to be the first independent board of directors member of this startup company. And this company is called eXp Realty. And so I served for 10 years on the board of directors of eXp World Holdings from 2013 up until 2023. I'm still a director of eXp Realty Canada, which I'm grateful for to serve on. And so we took that company from a startup as team all the way through to 90,000 licensed agents in 24 countries on 5 continents. It's a publicly traded company on NASDAQ today. It's in Australia. It's all over North America, internationally. And just all kinds of success stories out of that we transformed many people's lives from all walks of life. And so that was a huge home run for me. And today I serve on multiple paid advisory boards and boards of directors of companies all over the world. And I'm headhunted constantly by headhunters, recruiters, CEOs, HR departments all the time to serve on multiple boards. And people say, why? Well, number one is my history and experience. I've overcome a lot of adversities and failures and challenges and setbacks, my mindset, my mental toughness, and my perseverance. But also in terms of asset protection and risk mitigation. I had a lot of childhood trauma growing up, Ethan. And so from my childhood trauma, I learned to see the world from different angles. Because remember, I didn't go to regular public school. I didn't sit in regular public classes. I was in special education. So when I was in special education, I always looked at the regular students, and I was always looking at all the different angles of things that they were doing. And so that's why I see the world in terms of opportunity zones much different than the average person, because I learned how to survive with my rent-a-kid business, being a young hustler, being a young grinder, as an entrepreneur. And so I'm able to see, kind of like Wayne Gretzky in ice hockey or hockey, Wayne Gretzky always knew where the hockey puck was going to be down the ice before everybody got there. So I can see opportunities a lot of times before most people see them. And then building the right team around that with the mission and vision, the structure, the systems, and the process. And then we go. We execute and we grow and scale. And so today, between the advisory boards, the boards of directors, the portfolio of companies with the Darren Jacklin Group of Companies and LYNK Foundations, International Foundation, I live an extraordinary life, a very productive life, but I love it. It gives me great aliveness and joy and fulfillment. And I'm at a stage and age in my life where now I want to pay it forward and pass it on. That's why I'm doing these podcasts, because I can share with people practical information that can make a difference in people's lives. And that's what I'm committed to. It's just like people believed in me and Toastmasters, Dale Carnegie, when I didn't believe in myself. I stand for human growth and potential. I'm a stand for people that have goals and dreams and need hope and possibility, that I can pour belief into them, that they can do it. Because if you look at my life and do a deep dive of due diligence, you're thinking, oh my gosh, if Sir Darren Jacklin can do this and I'm just sharing with you part of my backstory of what I overcome. I've been, just full transparency, I've been homeless. So I've been homeless. I've had my car repossessed. I lived on welfare for a period of time. I was so financially broke, I couldn't pay to go bankrupt because I couldn't file the application fees to pay to go bankrupt years ago. In North America, I had an R9 credit rating. Now, most people, like, what's an R9 credit rating? I've never heard of that before. Well, that's a bank talk. That's bank talk, or that's credit score talk. But an R9 credit rating, people can research it online. It's the worst possible credit score you can get. In fact, some like Equifax and TransUnion Credit here in North America will say it's even worse than bankruptcy. And so I went from an R9 credit rating to become a multimillionaire. And so, I mean, how? I barely passed public high school. I don't have a PhD, I don't have an MBA, didn't go to school to study finance, none of that stuff. I did it by serving people and solving problems. But what really changed my life is having Tatiana in my life, because what I really learned from growing up was not trusting women's intuition. Today, I surround myself with a team of women and I listen to women's intuition. And because I've written some pretty big checks from some pretty big mistakes, not too long ago, I wrote a check for 400,000 US dollars because I didn't trust and listen to women's intuition. So when you have to write a check for 400,000 US dollars and you realize, oh, that's a painful day, you pay attention and stuff. So I can share from mistakes, the life lessons and the learning opportunities I learned that hopefully can help mitigate some risk and liability for people on the come up now. And the cool thing now is it's not about where you are today. It's about your come up story. That's the key thing that people always ask when I travel the world, is my come up story. Because I didn't quit. I didn't give up. There was days I wanted to quit. There's days I wanted to give up. And I was scared. But I've also learned the power of integrity and being my word. And that is so important. And we can dive into that about integrity and about being your word, because I got some very practical, valuable information that can really be a contribution to people listening around the world about integrity.
Yeah. Amazing. What a story. So much depth in there and so much things that you've overcome, from the lows of the lows, to the highs of the highs, and how you're really serving a lot of people. And I can really resonate with parts of your story where, with me, I dropped out of high school. My dad said I'd never be able to study, and one of my teachers said I'd never be successful, right? And it's these defining moments, right, where you've got this challenge and whatever that is, that you're not exactly fitting into a box, but then you overcome that, right? And
Yes.
with the story of your persistence and everything like that there. So I loved what you shared with us, and and amazing things that you've done. One bit that I thought was really interesting right at the end there, you said around trusting women's intuition, right? Tatiana, your partner there. And I'm sure a lot of people that are listening to this, and I've got my wife, she's an entrepreneur. She has her own business, a branding agency. So we're sort of separate, but I'm looking at how we can build together, right? And do that. So for the people out there that do have partners, and maybe wanting to build something more of that legacy like you're building, what are some tips that you think you can give us, that it's like, how can we harness the power, of two people together?
Two great books are must-read books. Must-read books. If you don't read them, it's going to cost you a lot of money not to read these books. Okay. First book is called Rocket Fuel. Just Google it, Rocket Fuel. Second book is called Traction, written by the same author, Gino Wickman. Rocket Fuel and Traction. Two must-read books if you're going to work together with your spouse or partner. Another great book is called The 5 Love Languages. The 5 Love Languages by Dr. Gary Chapman. It's a New York Times best-selling book called The 5 Love Languages. You can actually go onto Google and just type in the 5 Love Languages quiz. Take you about 20 minutes. Really come from your own home. And you can actually go through a free quiz, and it will show you the 5 love languages. And this has been widely researched, and I live by this. In fact, every human being I meet, when I enter them into my phone, I actually watch and observe what their love languages are. And in no particular order, Ethan, there's like physical touch, quality time, words of affirmations, gifts, and acts of service. And so if we look at Tatiana and I, for example, her number one love language is physical touch. That's her number one. My number one is acts of service. That's why I'm all about service and contribution and making a difference. It just gives me so much joy and aliveness. So, but my number five is physical touch. So if I see you at an airport or a conference or seminar, or workshop or a trade show, I'm not going to run up and hug you. It's my least. I'll still hug you if you reach out and hug me first, because that's probably your love language in your top three, but it's not my primary. It's my number five. I'm more, let's go out and serve people. Let's go make a difference. I'm about philanthropy, making a lot of money in for-profit businesses to then profit for people, to serve people and solve problems and make a difference in the world. The rocket fuel and traction are going to really give you some distinction and some context in regards to understanding a visionary and an integrator. So I play the visionary role, high level thinking. So I work on the businesses, not in the businesses. Okay. So I'm not involved in day-to-day operations of the structure, systems, and processes. I see more in terms of growth and strategy, joint ventures. I love the mergers and acquisitions. I love talking to business owners that want to exit their company. And if the numbers make sense and the discovery and due diligence makes sense, and we do an acquisition to, like, so for example, I have a partner right now with Tatiana and I, there's three of us, where we're acquiring bookkeeping, accounting, and tax planning firms across North America. And we're doing a roll-up right now and build that to about a $50 million company of annual revenue a year with our company called Smashing Numbers. And people say, why would you get into the bookkeeping, accounting, tax planning business? Like, that's kind of boring, right? Well, it is, it's boring. But here's the cool thing. It's predictable income in your portfolio, your assets. It's predictable income. Doesn't matter who's in political power. Doesn't matter if there's a natural disaster or what the weather's happening. Doesn't matter the state of the economy. At the end of the day, the government wants to get paid their taxes. And two things you can't avoid in life is death and taxes. So you're a client for a very long period of time in your life, and it's a stable, boring, predictable business model, but it has monthly recurring revenue. And that's something that's a big mistake I made very on in my life for the first, 30 plus years of my life, is I didn't have monthly recurring revenue. I'd go out and help grow businesses, and we had peaks and valleys of a roller coaster ride of cash flow. Now, when I get involved in businesses, I like the MRR, monthly recurring revenue. So we have, our clients, you get, whether it's subscriptions, like with what we do with Smashing Numbers, bookkeeping clients, payroll clients, right? It's monthly recurring revenue. So always be thinking, when you're building a business or going to acquire a business, do you have monthly recurring revenue? So important, because it helps you with the peaks and valleys of your cash flow. Is a big thing. But another thing is planning meetings, whether they're monthly or quarterly meetings with your spouse or partner, and sitting down and having a set meeting agenda, and then understand the personality styles between the two of you. And then when you go on a date night or you take a family vacation, make sure that, like Tatiana and I love business, right? Tatiana used to be a high school teacher for 35 years. She was a high school teacher. She got 3 academic degrees. So it's so funny how, my childhood trauma is I just hated and resented school teachers growing up, because I was in special education. I was misdiagnosed, a learning disability, reading disability. And so I had this real hate on with teachers, because I felt that they didn't believe in me. They didn't have my back. And so I was always scared and terrified being in public school. I felt I didn't fit in. I was socially awkward. And then come full circle now, I have a love of my life, and we've been together almost 10 years, and we built a portfolio of companies and achieved a lot of success together. Now we have an international foundation. We're building 100 schools around the world, right, to help alleviate poverty, provide access to clean drinking water and food security and education, and helping work with mental health around the world. It's because I'm a global ambassador for mental health since I've been knighted. And so it's just fascinating that and yet our personality styles, we're complementary, but we're very different, which is great because we see things from different angles. And it's great for the due diligence with business opportunities and investment opportunities, because I see things completely different from my point of view and my history and experience than Tatiana does. And so we're very complementary. So together, we're a very powerful couple. We're unstoppable. And people who meet us, they feel our energy, but they watch our actions like, oh my gosh, like these people are unstoppable. And that's why we're on a mission to do great things in the world and have a ripple of impact to really transform the human spirit, make a difference in people's lives. So you got to make sure you get the right partner. Sometimes you have to test drive and go through different partners till you find the right partner. But when I first met Tatiana, she was in the government. She was in the union. She was a teacher. She was not an entrepreneur. And then I helped to retire her after we did a humanitarian trip, and now we work together. So the key thing is communication, knowing your boundaries. And then also for me, I have to have alone time every day. And that's my 2 to 3 hours every day. It's scheduled in my calendar. It's non-negotiable. And I go hiking and I go to the gym in terms of my mental health and my well-being. But I'm obsessed with hiking. Hiking's changed my life. And because of that, so I like to get out into nature. And now a lot of my business meetings, rather than being in coffee shops or restaurants, are actually on the hiking trails because it's about buying back your time and being efficiency in terms of qualifying your time and protecting your time. And so when I'm on a hiking trail, number one is I can see your true authentic self and your vulnerable self. Because if I have you out hiking with me and you start to sweat, and the first thing is you've got to trust me because I'm taking you out into the wilderness and you think, oh my gosh, I might get eaten, attacked by a wild animal or by a snake or a spider. So you let your guard down, you take your mask off, and now you open up to me. And then when we start to elevate up a mountain, then you start to realize that you can't lie to me because you're trying to catch your breath, regulate your breathing, and you can't exaggerate, you can't embellish, you can't lie to things. So I have a very authentic and vulnerable conversation with people on the hiking trails, and we bond deeply. It's great for building culture, great for building teamwork. So if you've got a spouse or partner, introduce him or her to hiking or running or cycling or being out in nature. And also if you're building a team in terms of team building and culture building, take them out into nature. It's so important to be out in nature because so many people today that live in major centers around the world suffer, and there's a lot of research on this, about nature deficit disorder, NDD, nature deficit disorder. It means a lot of people in major cities live in concrete jungles. And years ago, when we were growing up, before they built all these big cities, all the concrete, that you would go to a park or a school ground or by a lake or a river and ocean or like a seawall. Well, today, people who live in major cities, they can't get out there unless they have to travel for miles or a few hours to get out of the city to get into nature. So what happens is they're not grounded, and that affects their mental health and the way they treat themselves and the way they treat other human beings.
Yeah. Amazing. I love that. So much gold that you just shared, and I'll definitely be implementing and talking to my wife, and I'm sure a lot of other people will be doing a similar thing with their partners there as well. Let's talk about your portfolio of companies now.
Sure.
You're doing a lot of roll-ups, which is amazing, right? You know, you can increase EBITDA and multiples very well when you put a lot of companies together, M&A. What I want to talk more about though is how you manage this, right? Because I think a lot of people want to get a lot of companies and we only have a certain amount of time. And I'd like to know how you manage them. Like, you know, maybe is there a dashboard element? Are there certain numbers that you're looking at so that you can see them from that higher level, so you know what you need to focus on to make sure they're going? So I'd love to know from your perspective how you're doing that management.
Absolutely. So first thing is that, like I shared earlier, I have over 7,000 written goals, and people are like, oh my gosh, I'm trying to figure out how to do a grocery list or plan a 2-week vacation, right? How can you manage 7,000 goals? Isn't that overwhelming? Isn't that ridiculous? Like some people, it just gives me anxiety thinking about that. Some people think that, right? Here's something to consider. I talk about this in my international book, Until I Become, that I'm known for, is that most of your goals and dreams do not require your actions. I want people to write that down. Most of my goals and dreams do not require my actions. That's interesting. Most of my goals and dreams do not require my actions. Different way of thinking, right? Mindset. Most of my goals and dreams do not require my actions. Okay, what do? Create teams. So I sucked at building teams in my early days. So I went and took training development courses. I actually went online, checked things out, got mentors, got coaches, and I actually started to study and model and pay people who were building high performance teams because success leaves clues. So I would pay for speed. So I'm thinking if I can take a course and learn about training development on how to learn and how to lead teams, right, as a visionary, as a high level thinker, and then have somebody run the day-to-day operations, can I do that, right? So over the last decade, I have been really focused on high performance teams. Okay, and how do I do that? So I get around people who are very good at building high performance teams. Now, when it comes to the acquisitions as a dashboard, yes, structures, systems, and processes. So do I like numbers? I do. Am I obsessed with numbers? No. I play games. There's games I play where I have metrics like, you know, our promises, our actual is, our gap is. But when it comes to the due diligence, I've got very smart people that are organized and very smart people around me that take care of that. And so they just give me a high level overview. So we have a dashboard. There's a deep dive of due diligence. There's data rooms. There's checklists that we go through. You know, there's a certain step-by-step process that we look at in terms of the, when we make an acquisition, we go through the onboarding, we go through the transition planning process, and that's all done virtual. and I have very smart, organized people that run those, and then just give me a high-level overview virtually with me. But I stay away from the day-to-day operations now and just focus on, okay, our goal is to get to 22 acquisitions with smashing numbers, built to a $50 million company. We know how we're going to either exit in 5 years to a big four accounting firm or to a private equity, or we'll hold on to the asset for monthly recurring revenue and cash flow as a legacy asset. Right. So I see that. So I'm the relationship guy. I go in, I see the opportunities, I bring the right people together, and then I have my team come in to, protect, right, in terms of asset protection, risk mitigation, and then we go through the discovery and due diligence process. So it's kind of like sports. I know my position, I play my position, I stay in my lane, and that's something I really focus on. Is that so if you're if you're an integrator, focus on integration. If you're a visionary, focus on visionary. If you're good at sales and marketing, stay on sales and marketing. If you like accounting and bookkeeping, stay in accounting and bookkeeping. Don't be all of the things, because then if you chase two rabbits, you won't catch none. So stay in your lane, and that's what I focused on from making mistakes in the past, is diversifying too much. Key thing is focus, focus, focus. And so I say, in terms of qualifying and protecting time, because the bigger the game you play, the more visibility, the more exposure you got. Like, so when I went to NASDAQ 3 times in New York City, I got on all these mailing lists all over North America and internationally. I got a lot of visibility, a lot of exposure. And so I started getting all this solicitation from all these people all over the world, right? And so you got to qualify and protect your time. And so one of the filters I do is actually hiking. I invite a lot of people to come out hiking with me rather than going for coffee shops and restaurants. Most people don't show up. So you save a lot of time. Because a lot of people just want to waste your time, and the ones that show up, you have an incredible experience for that couple hours. So I had just 2 weeks ago, I had 16 people reach out to me through LinkedIn in 1 week through direct message, wanting to meet with me for lunches or dinners, buy lunch and dinners. I took the 16 people and said, here's the date and time you'll meet with me in a group, not one-on-one, but in a group, and we'll see if anybody will show up. And out of that, we had 12 people show up of the 16, and we had 9 finish the hike. And I learned in that period of time, that couple hours, because behavior never lies, I learned who I want to move step forward with and who I don't. Who is transactional, just trying to get money or trying to get something, who's a taker, and who is relational, actually wanting to build relationship equity. And because you learn a lot in terms of, you watch people's actions, because the actions speak louder than people's words. And I watch people's feet, not their lips. And so I learn a lot by human behavior, by having people on the hiking trail with me, their intuition and their history and experience. And so it's a great filter. Another thing what I do is micro commitments. So what I'll do if people are hiking with me, as I'm going through the discovery process, getting to know them, I'll say, hey, Ethan, do you like to read books? And like, yeah. So like we talked about rocket fuel, traction, and the 5 love languages. Like, great. Hey, which book would you like to read? Rocket fuel, traction, or the 5 love languages? You're like, well, I want to work on my relationships. I want to read the book called The 5 Love Languages. Okay, great. I got a question for you. You can listen to an audio, or you're actually going to get the book. You're like, no, I'm going to read the book. I want to read it. Okay. You go to the public library, order on Amazon, or go to a bookstore. Oh, order off Amazon. Okay, great. By when can you order it by? And so what I'm listening for is your words, what you give your words to, because your words create your world. Your words create your world. You see, we hear in life or in business that talk is cheap. Talk is cheap. I think most people cheapen their talk because the words have no power. So when we give people micro commitment, what I'm doing is I'm listening for a buy when that's specific, that's measurable, that's actionable. So when in my 20s and 30s, I would go to a trade show or a conference or a seminar and get really excited, get really elated, because I met this person in the VIP section, or I met this person on an airplane. I'm so pumped, man. This is going to be a joint venture, a strategic alliance. It's going to be my business partner. And then all of a sudden I realized, oh my gosh, all these broken promises start happening, all these broken agreements and not following through. And there was all these lack of integrities. Okay. Because I used to do that in my younger days, had no integrity. And I used to lie. And I can share with you some stories of life lessons I learned from that. And so I'm very focused now. And the reason why I used to lie, and the reason why I used to exaggerate things, embellish things, my self-confidence, didn't believe in myself, imposter syndrome, feeling like a fake, feeling like a fraud, feeling I was never good enough, not smart enough. But the payoff for me for not keeping my word was I never had to confront myself. And so what I do is I give people micro commitments, especially with the hiking, is do they show up on time? Do they bring a water bottle? Do they have proper footwear? Did they leave a trip plan? Did they tell somebody in their family or loved ones where they're actually going out in the wilderness for a couple hours? So you start to see the behavior of this human being, how they're operating. And then I've had people come up with me hiking. They're like, well, Darren, I'm a real team player. Oh, really? For the last 3 hours, you were not a team player on this hike, right? You tell me you're a leader. You're at the top, and there's two people on the team here right now that are struggling trying to get up the hill. They're out of shape and out of breath, and you're not beside them. You're not coaching them. You're not listening to them. You're not having a conversation. You're not asking if they need water, if they need help, if they're out of breath. None of this stuff. And you tell me you tell me you're a leader, right? So you start to notice people, or like you're raising money, but you're constantly pitching and selling versus listening, asking questions, and educating and informing. So it comes down to micro commitments. What I do is I ask people, by when can you text message me that you're going to order that book? And you say, I'll do it by Friday by 5 p.m. Pacific Standard Time Zone here in Vancouver, Canada. So then I wait for 5 p.m. Pacific Standard Time Zone by this Friday for a text message from you. If I don't, you didn't pass the micro commitment. So then what I'll do is I'll give you another commitment, and I'll give you maybe a half a dozen micro commitments, and then it's game over, right? I start to distance myself from you, because if you can't keep your word, then the key thing is, how are you going to work with me in bigger deals and bigger projects? If you can't do little things and keep your word there, because here's the thing, how can you expect to keep your word and honor? If you don't honor your word has no power. So I felt in my 20s and 30s that I was powerless because I was throwing my word out there to so many different people, but I wasn't keeping my personal promises to myself and my agreements with other people. Most mistrusting and suspicious people don't honor their promises and agreements. Think about that for a moment. Most mistrusting, right, and suspicious people don't honor their promises to themselves and agreements to other people. And so when people break their promises, what happens is they lose their power. So I always share with people, this is how I train my teams when I speak a lot of times around the world. I always share with people, I said, imagine this. So imagine, Ethan, you and I are going to do something. So imagine this. Imagine when you booked me to come onto this podcast to serve people, I gave you my word that I would be here. You scheduled your day. You got dressed up. You're here today, right? And I don't show up. You're like, okay, is this Darren guy, is he reliable? Is he flaky? Like, what's going on here? See, people don't realize that this is how they walk around the world, is by not keeping their word, by not showing up on time. So what I do is on my phone, I for everything in my calendar, okay, so here's something to remember. If it's not structured into your calendar, there's no evidence that exists into your life. There's no evidence that exists in your life. If it's not in your calendar, I always ask people, I get these people like, Darren, I need to focus on revenue generating activities. I need to make more money. Okay, great. Show me your calendar. And I'm like, okay, you have no income producing activities here. Everything you're doing is non-income producing in the next 5 days. So how are you going to increase your income when you're not focused on income producing activities? All these things are administration tasks. All these things are non-revenue generating activities. No wonder you're not growing and scaling and generating more revenue. Okay, behavior never lies. This is what's structured into your calendar. Oh, Darren, I want to go on more date nights. I want to work out at the gym. I want to do more hiking. How can you do 2 to 3 hours a day of hiking? Because it's scheduled. And if you're like, well, Darren, I want to meet you this time. Great, come on hiking with me. Otherwise, sorry, I can't meet with you. This is non-negotiable time. It's for my mental health, my well-being. This is my physical fitness time, my thinking time. If you want to come with, if you want to be in my calendar on that time, you come on hiking with me. And so I start to control my calendar, start to control my time. But here's the thing. What I always share with people is, imagine this. If you don't keep your promise to yourself and your agreements to other people, every time you break a promise to yourself or agreement to other people, we cut off your finger. Ooh, that hurts. Ooh, there's some skin in the game. There's a cost. See, if people walked around their life starting today realizing every time I give my word to something, if I don't keep my word, I lose my finger. And I've learned from people that are in prisons around the world, inmates, men and women, that people on death row that don't care about their life. But one thing every human being cares for is not losing a limb. They'll fight you to their death. And so if people want to raise their standards of integrity, then focus on every time that you give your word to somebody, like, I'll be there. Okay, great. And if you don't, we're going to cut your finger off. And I've had many people the last few years who promised me that they'll come on the hiking trails, and they ghost me. They don't even text message, don't even email, don't even phone me, don't even direct message. And then a week later goes by and they'll hit me up through social media like, hey, Just want to see, we're closing our financial round. Do you want to, can you invest in this? I'm like, hold on a second here. You didn't clean up the out of integrity over here of last week of being a no-show. You're not even going to restore your integrity of what you gave your word to. You gave your word. Your words create your world. If people understood how important their word, and this is why I was financially broke years ago, right? 38 years of age, I confronted myself of how out of integrity I was. Give me an example. One day I want to meet this high net worth investor, and I don't have any money. I don't have any money. I'm traveling around the world doing corporate training seminars, but I've got all these expenses because I'm booking out a year in advance, so I'm paying all my travel expenses up front. So I pay off my credit card, rack up my credit card, pay off my credit card, rack up my credit card, pay off a line of credit, rack it up, and it's just a vicious cycle of peaks and valleys of a roller coaster of being an entrepreneur, growing my corporate training business. And I called a buddy of mine who we go back and forth playing this game where he'd spot me, I'd borrow money from him, he'd borrow money from me. We played this teeter-totter thing for a few years. And this is many years ago. And so I say, hey man, I need you to buy my airline ticket, pay for my hotel. So I borrow that and I fly into this city and I'm staying at the Holiday Inn Hotel because the next morning there's free continental breakfast. And when I wake up, I realize, oh my gosh, this from the hotel to this guy's office where I had to get to is going to be a really expensive taxi cab ride. There's no Uber back then, and I don't have the money. Like I'm flat broke, got nothing in my pockets. And I'm eating the airline food right on the airplane, and I'm eating the continental breakfast in the Holiday Inn. That's all I've got. And so what I do, I lie. I call up this investor from my hotel room. I call him up and I lie, I exaggerate, I embellish, and I say, listen, man, traffic's really crazy. I don't, it's hard to get a taxi cab right now. Listen, I've got a powerful request. I know we're short on time. Could you come to the hotel? I'm going to buy you breakfast. Complete lie. I'm going to buy you breakfast. And he's like, well, you know what? We arranged this to be here at my office. I thought you were coming to my office. Okay, fine, I'll come. And he's really disturbed. He does not want to come to the Holiday Inn. So he gets in his car, he drives to the Holiday Inn. I greet him outside, I bring him inside. And I'm like, hey, listen, I want you to eat breakfast. Go ahead. It's on me. Well, it's not on me. There's signs all around the hotel for registered hotel guests only. He sits down, starts eating breakfast, and I realize I've got 30 minutes on the clock to start pitching and selling him like a timeshare salesman and hustle and grind this guy because I wanted to write me a check for 50,000 US dollars. So I lunge in on this guy, like full just blow on pitching and selling this guy. And I'm totally scared, coming from fear, coming from doubt, coming from worry, coming from insecurity, and just terrified because I'm broke. I'm financially broke and I'm desperate. I'm desperate. And 90 seconds into my pitching and selling this guy, he goes, Darren, I need you to shut up. And he just yells out really loud. It was almost like he punched me in the face. He goes, stop talking. Let's deal with your out of integrities. I'm thinking, what are you talking about? Of course, my image, my ego, I want to look good. I want to impress him. I'm confident, even though I'm scared and terrified. And he goes, let's deal with your out of integrities. First of all, let's deal with the BS. Number one is this isn't complimentary breakfast. You're not buying me breakfast. This is for registered hotel guests only. There's signs all over this place. Second thing is you lied to me. You have no money. I can see right through you. Behavior never lies, right? And if people are taking notes, I'd like them to write this down. This will change your life. Time will either promote you or time will expose you. It's just a matter of time. Every human being will either get promoted or get exposed around your health, your finances, your relationships, your job, your career, your business. Time will either promote you or time will expose you. It's just a matter of time. And so what happened was I got exposed that day for lying, exaggerating, embellishing. I got exposed. And I was in my late 30s. And that was a very hard, scary, confronting day for me. And that guy left, didn't write me a check for $50,000 that day. But what he taught me was to stop lying to myself. I got caught. I got found out that day. And I thought I was really good at mastering hiding the lies, the exaggerations, the embellishments, all that stuff. And he called me out. And it was the greatest gift of my life because I was not coachable. I was arrogant. I was cocky. I wanted to look good. I had image. I had ego. I was traveling the world, training some of the biggest corporations around the world, big brand names as a corporate trainer. And, I had status on the airline, status all over. But meanwhile, I was struggling financially as a business owner, wondering why I could never get ahead, why I could never grow and scale. And what I also discovered was that success is not something you go out in the world to pursue. I was chasing, hustling, grinding every day. I was making 400 cold calls a day, 2,000 cold calls a week over 5 years out of telephone books, cold calls to build my corporate training business from 1995 to year 2000. Over 100,000 cold calls I made out of the telephone books. 400 cold calls a day, hustling and grinding, using scale scripts as a telemarketer. Okay, made all the phone calls. And so I was out there hustling and grinding, pursuing success, wanting to build this corporate training business. But what I realized is success is not something you go out in the world to pursue. Success is something you attract into your life by the person you become. And I was not becoming an attractive person because I had no integrity. I lied, I exaggerated, I embellished, I did all this stuff, and then I got caught. And that was a defining moment. I went from there to 4 years later becoming a millionaire. Because as soon as I changed my, so people look at me and they go, what was the biggest turning point in your life? Was it being homeless, being on the streets, being on welfare, couldn't afford to go back? No, when I stopped lying to myself and looked at myself and confronted myself and realized, oh my gosh, this is who I am as a human being. Because I was out pursuing success. I was out hustling, grinding, going to all the networking events, the trade shows, the conferences, the seminars, all that stuff. I was doing all that stuff. Chamber of Commerce, Rotary clubs, women in business, you name it. All these seminars, all these workshops all over the world. I'm like, why am I not getting ahead? Because if I want to change, I got to change me. And that was a hard thing to do, to accept myself. And so what I did was I actually got an integrity coach. I actually hired an integrity coach. Okay, there's people out there who exist, and they're in your face and they confront you. And this integrity coach had me write a list of all the people that I had lied, exaggerated, embellished things to. Because in my 30s, I owed a lot of money. I owed people money. And people would ask me, they go, Darren, how's your family? Oh, my family's doing great. Lied. No, I haven't talked to my family. The truth is, I haven't talked to my family in a number of months because I owe them money. And I have a good relationship with them because I'm completely out of integrity with them. I have broken agreements with them. But I'm not telling that story because I want to look good. I want to have image. I want to have ego. I want to impress people. I got it all together. I'm a corporate trainer. I'm training the biggest companies in the world. Meanwhile, I feel like a fake and a fraud inside myself, completely struggling inside myself with my identity. Wonder why things are not working out for me. And so when I started to realize, wow, I have no authenticity. I have no vulnerability. I'm compartmentalizing everything. And then I'm believing my own stories in my own head. And so with my integrity coach, he had me write out all the areas of my life where I'm out of integrity. And it was ugly. I didn't want to look at it. I wanted to run and hide from it. And he goes, you need to train yourself to run towards, like a firefighter run into a burning building. And the more you run to integrity and want to be an integral with your life, about your words, of who you are as a human being, you watch your financial net worth grow. You watch your quality of life increase. You watch the friends that come into your life. You watch the doors, the possibilities, and the opportunities, and the seats at tables you get to sit at. I know today, if I did not hire an integrity coach and take different training development programs on integrity, I would never have got knighted. It would never have happened because I wouldn't have passed the due diligence. Not a chance. But because I changed, because I did the hard work, the scary work, the vulnerable work, the confronting work on myself, and then I got into massive action, even though I was freaking scared and wanted to throw up and was sick and wanted to hire covers. And I called all these people that I had met throughout many years of my life. And I said, can I have a conversation with you? And I take a deep breath. I said, listen, this is really scary for me right now. It's really uncomfortable, but I just need to share something with you. I lied to you. I exaggerated things to you. I embellished things to you because I wanted to close the deal. I wanted to get the sale. I wanted to take you out and date you. And I went back to all these people over my years, and it was amazing the support I got. Some didn't want anything to do with me, small percentage, but it's amazing when I started to do this, I started to change myself, and the stress and the weight came off my shoulders, and I felt like I reinvented myself. I felt like a completely different human being, that I just felt like, wow, I can just be my true authentic self, my vulnerable self. And so that was a turning point in my life. And then all these doors and opportunities and business and money and wealth and all these things changed, not overnight, but over the next few years of my life, things started to change. And it was phenomenal because if you're willing to do what's hard, life becomes easier. If you do what's always easy, life becomes harder. And I was always doing things that were easy, so my life got harder. And so I just like, well, I'll just exaggerate. I'll just call this financial guy up and I'll just exaggerate and lie to him that traffic and all this stuff. Meanwhile, I didn't have any money to pay for the taxi, go to his office, told him I was going to buy him breakfast, all this stuff. And so now I'm just fully transparent with people and I just share with people authentically and vulnerably. And my life is an incredible work, the way it works in my relationship, everything I work in my life. And whatever area of our life is not working, that we don't have power in, there's out of integrities. Just take a look. It's ugly, but take a look, do an audit, because sometimes it's a blind spot. We don't see it. But it's when you start to look at it, like, so 5 years ago, I'm in Niagara Falls, Ontario, Canada, just before COVID-19. And I was addicted to processed foods. I was addicted to sugar and fast foods, traveling 276 days a year doing corporate training centers all over the world. So I'm at this big real estate conference, the who's who of North America. I'm in Niagara Falls, Ontario, Canada, just a few weeks before COVID took off, and it was all over the media around the world. And before we go into lockdown. And I had this brand new suit, brand new shirt, and I'm going on stage in a couple hours to speak in front of 1,200 people. And it's going to be televised on the internet. And I looked down and I realized, oh my gosh, like I'm 50 pounds heavier. And if you look at my social media, you'll see the pictures from a few years ago, how I look, my cheeks, my body, I'm fat and I'm overweight. And I realized that day, oh my gosh, I'm going to maybe burst some buttons in my suit jacket, my dress shirt. And what did I say earlier? Time will either promote you or time will expose you. It's just a matter of time. Well, guess what? I got exposed. Got exposed with my health, fitness, nutrition. I go on stage that day. I'm completely embarrassed. Completely embarrassed. I come back and I fly back to Vancouver, Canada here. And I go hiking with two friends of mine. Actually, I had lunch with the guy earlier today, who was the guy I was with 5 years ago. We had lunch just a few hours ago today here in Vancouver. And they took me hiking. And we went on this hiking trail just 5 years ago that kids in elementary school can do the hike in about 45 minutes. Ethan, it took me 2 hours and 48 minutes to get to the top. And when I got to the top, I was completely out of shape and out of breath. I had to lay down to conserve my energy because I was completely exhausted. The two people I was with are both real estate agents here in Vancouver. And they said, Darren, we have to leave you up here because we have to go down, shower, change, and go to our open houses, sell real estate, commission salespeople. And I said, well, what am I going to do? So I'm laying at the top of this hill. All these people are coming and going with their kids, their grandkids, and I'm flat out done. And I thought, oh my gosh. So in North America, we have what we call 911. So first responders. And I'm thinking in my mind, do I take out my cell phone right now? I've got cell phone coverage, and do I call 911 and have the first responder, search and rescue, or the fire department come up here and actually retrieve me off this hill? So embarrassing. Just can't do it. So I actually laid up there for a bit. And I came back down. It took me 6 hours round trip to do this hiking trail. When I got back into my automobile, I looked in my rearview mirror and I said, I don't want to live my life that way anymore. So in the last 5 years, I started hiking. I said, I'm going to be accountable and responsible with my integrity. And I'm going to be fully transparent. I'm going to document my journey on my social media channels. And I'm going to expose myself. I'm going to call myself out and expose myself on my social media of how out of integrity I've treated my human body throughout my life because I have no spare body. This is the only meat suit I got. And I'm gonna show people how I was addicted to processed food, fast food, and sugar all these years of my life traveling. And I'm gonna change this. I'm not gonna treat my body like a woodshed or like a rental car. I'm gonna treat it like a temple. I'm gonna honor and respect my human body. And so I started to document this on my social media, and people started to reach out to me and say, hey, can I come out hiking with you? And now today we have a global movement around the world through LYNK Foundation. We're building 100 schools around the world. And then when I got knighted in 2022, when I gave my oath and I took the sword, I made two public global declarations. Number one, to be a global ambassador for mental health awareness, because I know what it's like, because I had suicide attempts. I know what it's like to feel not good enough, not smart enough, feel insignificant, feel invisible. I know what it's like because of my upbringing. And number two was to be accountable and responsible with a high performance team to build 100 schools around the world and to give people an opportunity to be a part of that. And so I turned crises into opportunities that now serve vast amounts of people around the world. And so look at my life today, people say, wow, good for you. You did Mount Kilimanjaro last year. I did. Scariest thing in my life, but I accomplished it. Trained a year for it. Terrified. It was an impossible goal, and I achieved it. And so there's these things in our lives that nothing's ever in our way. It's only on our way. But the greatest journey is changing ourselves from within. And I've also learned to add to about relationships. I get a lot of people. I have a lot of men reach out to me all the time around the world privately, or I'll be at events and I'll be guest speaking at events and they'll pull me aside and men are like, hey, can I ask you a question? Thinking about getting a life coach, thinking about getting a business coach. Who's your top three picks? Who'd you recommend I talk to and interview to hire a business coach or a life coach for myself? I'm like, okay. Can I ask you some qualifying questions? I'm like, yeah. I said, are you in a relationship? Yeah. Man or woman? No, I'm with a wife. Okay, great. Are you committed relationship? Yeah, I've been together for a while. So great. Listen, I can recommend some great life coaches or business coaches to you, and you can hire them and pay them a lot of money, and they'll work with you maybe a couple hours a month. But you know, the greatest coach in your life is your wife. She knows your strengths. She knows your weaknesses. She knows your fears, your doubts, your worries, your insecurities, and your blind spots because she lives with you. And if you become coachable and open to her, trusting her intuition and her feedback to you, and sometimes constructive feedback to you, it'll be the greatest blessing and gift of your life. And the early days of my relationship with Tatiana, I was not coachable. I was resistant. We'd argue, we'd verbally fight. And then I realized one day, okay, I got to put my guard down. And if I actually just listen from a different point of view, that she's actually the greatest coach I ever showed my life because she knows me, because she lives with me. She knows my strengths, my weakness, my fears, my doubts, my worries, my insecurities, my blind spots. If I just see that as a possibility in my life and just become open-minded to it, what can it do for my life? And when I share this with men, people are like, well, that's not what I expected to hear from you. I said, if you take it as a gift and unwrap it and just trust the process and go with it, follow up with me in 3, 6, 9, 12 months and see how it's working for you. And you'll be amazed at the greatest blessing and gift in your life that will happen. And that's a key thing in partnership and relationship. If you got a spouse or partner, significant other, have her be your greatest cheerleader because she'll protect you. She'll protect you, but she'll also give you constructive feedback that you don't want to hear because she lives with you and she sees you. And so whenever I start kind of getting a little bit off my high levels of integrity, boom, I get called out like right like that. I don't get away with nothing. And I respect that and I appreciate that because I want to get a black belt in integrity. It's one of my big goals, get a black belt in integrity like martial arts. That's high performance. But also, I'm 52 years of age. I look at my life saying, man, when I was in my 20s and 30s, I'm looking at the guy 10, 20 years older than me. Right? I was out hiking last week, saw a guy 89 years old on top of a mountain with his wife who was 86. And this was not an easy hike. And he's 89. I'm thinking, my gosh, 89 years old. He's at the top of this mountain from New Zealand. And he's traveling the world right now with him and his wife. They're all these bucket list things on their travel. Man, I want to be like that guy. I'm chasing that guy to be like that at 89 years of age with that vitality and energy and longevity of his life. Man, that's what I want. So I realize in my life, there's younger men on their come up watching me and how is my actions and behaviors modeling to him or her. So I'm always mindful and always aware of that. It's very important.
Yeah. Amazing. Far out. There was so much gold that you just shared with us there, Darren. And you were like in flow, in the zone. And I could really feel the authenticity, right? Coming out. And I think I recommend everybody, like you should be writing a lot of notes of so much gold that Darren just wrote. And the big thing for me that I've been thinking about and you've highlighted to me is around showing as much as possible of my authenticity and my vulnerability and in sharing that. Right? Like not just doing it, but actually sharing it on social media and things like that. Because then you'll connect to people much more, right? And putting it out there. So I think that was it was an amazing about
it's
your partner.
It's easy to share that because I used to go to workshops and seminars in my younger days, and I still do. And I'd walk into these workshops and seminars and see these guest experts and these speakers and stuff and people on panels. And I'm like, so there was a time in my life where I was living paycheck to paycheck. Okay. And I became a telemarketer. I wanted to learn how to master the art of the telephone, right? Making cold calls. So I went and got a job as a telemarketer here in Canada for Maclean's magazine. And that's why I started making 400 cold calls a day, 2,000 cold calls a week off these mailing lists. And then I started using the telephone books. So what happened was I was living paycheck to paycheck. And then when I became an entrepreneur and just totally cut off the paycheck, like being an employee, I went for a period of time of living panic to panic. So I went from paycheck to paycheck to panic to panic. And what happened was I realized in my life was, oh my gosh, this is really scary. And so just like you said, what you just said, something I just shared with you, repeat it again.
Yeah. So really showcasing my authenticity and vulnerability and actually sharing it with people as well.
So I'll give you an example. So with that, just to add to that, so here I'm at these workshops and seminars. I'm living panic to panic, right? And I'm volunteering to get in the room, or I'm borrowing money, or I'm having to put things together to get enough money to pay for the workshop or the seminar. I go there and I'm like, oh my gosh, I am so depressed. I'm just trying to figure out how to pay my bills on time, pay my rent on time, increase my credit score, don't get my car repossessed, or don't get more collection agencies or creditors after me, right? Because I owe people money. And this guy's talking about something that I can't even relate to what he's talking about because it's so far distance from me. But what I really wanted was tell me about the adversities, the failures and challenges. So I don't feel like I'm more. So I go to these events and think, well, man, I'm struggling. I'm having adversities and challenges, and good for you. You got the Midas touch. Everything you touch turns to gold. And I don't have that. I don't have that genetics. I don't have that DNA. And so what I find now is the more, even on social media, the more authentic and vulnerable we can be and share with people the good, the bad, the ugly, the more people respect and admire you. And the more people want to be around you because you're authentic, you're vulnerable, and you're transparent with people. And there's a lot of fake people on social media today. And you look at it and think, and then I meet these people. I've met a lot of people around the world and I think to myself, oh my gosh, what you're saying is not what your actions are doing. Like completely different world. You create this fake, and it reminds me of my younger self of lying, exaggerating, embellishing things, and I'm realizing why life didn't work for me.
Yeah, amazing. I love that. And I'm definitely going to be showcasing much more of that. You've just highlighted it even more so. So much gold here today. Darren, we connected through our networks. I learned about, your awesome journey from training executives and teams, from over 157 Fortune 500 companies to being a world-class speaker, PhilanthroInvestor. You're creating so much impact and change, not only from this podcast episode and everything else that you're doing, but from your, foundations and your book and everything else like that. You're an awesome guy, so knowledgeable, so giving and wanting to help others and make a difference, right, in other people's lives. I'm very grateful, that we connect. I look forward to working with you and then see if we can do something fun together. And so how can, people find you, get in contact with you, learn about your book, about your foundations and all of that as well?
Yeah, you can go to, so if you want to come take a hike and build a school with us through LYNK Foundation, we're starting to do these all internationally. Go to hikingfundraiser.com, hikingfundraiser.com. And if you want to find me, you can go to darrenjacklin.com, and I'm all over social media. The book, which went global, this is the book here. You can order, it's less than 100 pages, as you can see. It's a very practical book. This book is being used in colleges, universities, schools all over the world. It's a great book. I had no interest in ever writing a book. I didn't want to. In fact, Mark Victor Hansen, who co-authored Chicken Soup for the Soul, who is actually in the Guinness Book of World Records for selling over 500 million copies, him and his partner Jack Canfield, the Chicken Soup for the Soul. Mark and I toured together a number of years ago in Canada here. And I said, Mark, I have no interest in writing a book. And then during COVID, during the lockdown, Tatiana has 3 academic degrees, and she's a master's degree in curriculum education. And every day in my life, I journal. I journal every day of my life. It's a non-negotiable. I do every day. I've journaled for over 30 years of my life. And during COVID, we're in the lockdown here in Vancouver. I went to my storage locker and opened up my journals. And I have a standing agreement with Tatiana or anybody in my life that nobody can read my journals until upon my death. And in my will, you can read my journals. And so I decided, okay, we're in lockdown, but how long is it going to be? So I opened up my journals and I started sharing with Tatiana authentically to connect deeper relationships. So you just know more about me, things I overcome and challenges and setbacks and adversities. And then she looked at me, and of course, my love language, acts of service, right? Number one love language. She looks at me and she says, it'd be a disservice to humanity if you didn't share what's in your journals with the world. And I started crying. I thought, wow. People, and I felt, oh my gosh, I felt naked thinking, people want to know that about me. These are private conversations in my journal. I don't want anybody to read them until I'm dead. They're private. Like I'm totally vulnerable and transparent, just like, oh, my darkest days. Because there's so much gold and value in that. And so until I got created as a result of that, and it became a home run. It went all over the world. And the messages I get frequently from people all over the world about how that book has made a difference in their life. In fact, people don't read the book. They actually study it because there's so much practical information. It's less than 100 pages because we cut all the fluff up. There's no fluff, there's no filler, there's no sizzle. You just get the steak, not the sizzle. And that's what I want because I'm a guy that likes the steak, not the sizzle. And I know everybody's protecting and qualifying their time. And so the book went global, and it's just been a huge blessing to serve people. And now when I travel, people come up to me in airports and all over the world and like, I read your book and here's how it changed my life. And they always have a story to share, which I love. Because to me, it's acts of service. It gives me great joy.
Yeah, amazing. I'm definitely going to be getting the book and delving into it, mate. And yeah, it has been so much of a pleasure. So everybody definitely check out Darren there and all those areas. Learn about the book, get involved with his foundation, reach out to him. Such a man of so much wisdom that you share with us today, mate. Thanks for being on the Business Growth Show.
I'm grateful to be here. Absolutely.
Thank you for watching and listening to the Business Growth Show, where we talk about everything on business growth. And please like, subscribe, and leave us a 5-star review. You can find me on LinkedIn, Facebook, Instagram, and YouTube as Ethan Cassiotis, or visit my website, ethancassiotis.com. And if you want to grow and scale your business, you can reach out to me on any platform to see if we're a good fit. So until next time, remember that our business grows where we learn skills and take action using them in spite of fear. So let's create wealth and freedom together.